Swift Kicking Ass, episode 42.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curran and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass. Living life on your terms.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong friend, John Curran. And today, we're finishing up on part 2 of the Lifestyle Design Summit. So we're going to jump right in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Now, he did, I don't want to just leave him yet because he had so much to present. One of the things, some of the tips I wrote down was, you have to ask yourself, how will your business live in a smartphone? He gave examples with Uber and Amazon, right? How like with Amazon, years before Amazon had come out, there was this meeting of big box bookstores, probably Barnes and Noble, Walden's,
right. brick and mortar bookstores,
right? Brick and mortar bookstores, and they were asking. There was a futurist, and the futurist was saying, you guys need to sell books online. And everyone was like, no, because people want to come in and enjoy the bookstore experience. They want to be able to see, what's recommended by the staff. They want to see, they want to drink some coffee. They want to be able to smell the cover, it and flip through it, all those things. So they all poo-pooed it. And basically some of those companies now are gone and they don't even exist because Amazon came along. And, it's the same thing is happening with Uber and the taxi companies.
And I know from the people that listen from the stats for our podcast, I know that our podcasts are listened mostly on mobile devices. So a lot of our listeners are out there on mobile devices, and we all have them. In fact, in 2 years? Is it 2 years, Tom? That the number of smartphones is going to actually outnumber the number of human beings on this planet. People are always on the go. They're taking their technology with them. And we seem to really be only as smart as our phone is concerned. But these phones are making things so much easier and so simple. Like with Uber, it was mentioned that, I'm heading down the elevator. I, click on Uber. And by the time I'm out in the lobby, the car's there.
Right. And as comparison, if he calls a taxi cab, he doesn't know if they're going to be there in 10 minutes or an hour later, if it's going to be dirty, if the guy speaks English, so, and there's no way to leave a rating or a review, so it's a crapshoot. Right. Or if even the cab shows up. I drove a taxi cab, so I understand what he's talking about. And, guys will say, yeah, they'll say, who's closest in this area? And, they want the closest cab, but there might be some guy an hour away that gets the job saying he's in that area just so he can get the job.
Right.
So you're there waiting,
And towards the end of that conversation, he brought up artificial intelligence, AI.
Yes. Yeah.
And was talking about how the technology is changing our lives. And if it continues this way where chips, computer chips can talk to other computer chips and compare notes, that really they're going to be much smarter than us. And they were talking about, all the computer chips being at an AI conference.
Right. Yeah. Talking about what are they going to do with the humans?
What are they going to do with the humans? Because what are we doing? We're polluting the air. We're polluting our waters. We're always fighting each other. We're killing each other in war. And it's a real mess. There are a lot of problems.
Just want to mention, we and that the futurist that he was talking about that had the meeting with the bookstore owners was Dan Burris, and he wrote Flash Foresight Futurist. Flash Foresight, I think, was the name of the book that he's popular for. But this is something to put out there. Yeah. And he talked also about how he was at an airport and there was a lady that or he was on an airplane, and this lady had a dog, a little puppy. And he was petting it, and the lady said, "Oh, he or she is a clone." And he thought she was kidding. The dog's licking his face. And then he says he gets off the airplane, and there's all this media there waiting, and he thinks, oh wow, man, my seminar must have really hit it off, right? And I think they were coming from Korea. I think that's where they cloned it.
I think so.
Right? So he realizes that they're there for that lady that had that dog, and that it really was a clone. They had cloned this dog, and here he is as his cloned dog, licking his face.
Yeah, and I think also the bigger message in that is that, there's a lot that cloning humans is a very controversial issue, but we have the technology, and even if a bunch of countries band together, sign treaties saying we're not going to clone, don't you think that some of these other countries that have very limited resources and want to put their country on the map, so to speak, are not going to want to become the cloning country?
Right.
I mean, just because treaties are signed, I mean, that is technically possible to clone, whether you feel it's moral, immoral, or no matter your feelings are. He was saying this is going to happen in the next 10 years.
And he says, how do you fight a clone army? Of course, I responded to you with Jedis.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, I mean, basically that Star Wars and Star Trek and science fiction and comic books, the technology is becoming real,
Yeah. And, I'm not all for doom and gloom. I know that there are a lot of problems in this world, and I'm not, as much as issues like this scare me a little bit, I recognize that, it makes it even so much more important to focus on your little part of the world that you can make an impact on. And when you can make an impact in your own world and you start living a better life and you're happier, it has a viral effect and other people become happier. And it makes the world a much better place. And yes, there are always going to be problems beyond our control. And that's the way the world is. We'll deal with those as it comes along. But we can't stop growing as people, as individuals. We have to keep learning. We have to keep pushing ourselves, keep thriving. And, this summit was a great reminder to me of all that.
Yeah, I think the last thing that he had so much good information, but the one other thing was that he said, always question the premise, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. He said, no matter if the question that you ask is the wrong question, the answer is irrelevant. We need to make sure that we're asking the right questions. And give an example. Actually, I don't know if that was. I think that was somebody else. That wasn't Randy.
Was that not Randy?
I don't think so. But it's talking about.
No, I think it was because
he was dating. Oh yeah, I guess you're right.
Because he was talking about his mother, how she would always tell him because that's the way it is, or that's right.
Yeah, that's just the way it is, and a lot of people don't question why it is. And he said that he took a girl out on a date, and
it was a Colombian girl, a Colombian girl that he was dating, right? And he put her purse on the floor. Right.
She handed him her purse, and she said, "Will you please take my purse and put it to the side?" So he did that, and he put it on the floor. And she said, "No, don't put that. Please don't put my purse on the floor." And so he picked it up and he put it on the table, and he was thinking about her response.
Right.
And he says, I just have to laugh a little, and I have to ask you, why can't I put your purse on the floor? And her answer was, he said, did someone teach you how to do that? Was it your mother? Was it your grandmother? And that's when she laughed. I guess it was a good date.
Right.
But she responded, my grandmother told me when I was a little girl. She said, I picked up her purse and I put it on the floor and I got in trouble for it. And that's just not something you do. You don't put the purse on the floor. And I think it was a great example of how we're programmed. Oh, these little things happen in our life that have a big impact or a big effect on us.
some other quick tips that he gave. He said, analyze your workspace and make sure it fosters creativity. That was a big one for him. He said, create or join a mastermind of critical thinkers. And he was saying, not a paid mastermind. This is people that, like 5 people
who are smarter than you.
That are smarter than you, and bring something to the table maybe that they don't know how to do, but that you can offer something to the group.
And what he also said about that, which I thought was very interesting, he said, these masterminds can be living or they can be dead. And you think, how are you going to spend time with the dead guy or get dead lady?
Right.
And you do that by reading. You do that by reading books or learning about people that you're interested in.
Right. I think it's like Napoleon Hill and all the great guys that were talking about, Think and Grow Rich, Carnegie. I mean, there's so much wisdom that we have access to if we just took time and actually read it and thought about it and reflected on it.
And history really does have it tends to repeat itself. And the better you can understand what's happened in the past, the better you can understand what may or may not happen in the future or what's going on right now. I think it gives you a better foundation to make better decisions.
All right. The other thing is, we talked about how Uber and Amazon upset the space as far as they disrupted the space for, bookstores and taxis. He was asking, he goes, how would someone come and disrupt your business? Is there some 2 kids in a dorm room, eating Domino's pizza that's going to put out an app that's going to make you obsolete? And he also asked the same question in a reverse way, saying, how can you disrupt someone else's business? Right.
And here on the Swift Kick in the Ass, we don't always focus on business and entrepreneurs, but I really do feel that we all are artists. We all should really think like an entrepreneur, whether you work for corporate America or work for yourself. You should take care of your own business, and that you also can benefit by learning about how corporations function. There are some big benefits for being organized.
Well, you don't think those bookstores took a swift kick in the ass when they from Amazon and had to pivot and change, even though they don't, in comparison, they don't make any of the sales close to what Amazon does. But they have moved since then. The ones that have survived have moved online and are trying to emulate the model that Amazon uses.
And change is inevitable. It's going to occur. We can't stop it. But you can manage it.
The one thing that they wanted to focus on, and J.B. Glossinger really focused on this, is, and so did Randy, is your relationship. It's not about just building your list, and not about just getting customers. You got to have a relationship with your customers and build your tribe one person at a time, because that's how you really build a following. You don't do it by just treating them as a number. You got to reach out and communicate with them.
Yeah, I learned something a long time ago, that trust really is the foundation of all relationships, and that if you really stop to think about it, think about someone that you trust and that you could trust completely. How you communicate with them is usually very easy. They get you, they understand you, you understand them. It's just an easy exchange of thoughts and emotions and whatever you're else trying to communicate. But when you think about people that you don't trust, how do you communicate with them? It's generally are we getting a zero sound? Okay. I saw a note on there that said zero sound. But when you think about someone that you don't trust, the communication is labored. It's much more difficult. You're second guessing what they're saying. You're trying to read into what they're saying. It's just a mess sometimes when you don't trust. So trust is really the foundation of all relationships, and whether they're virtual or real. Oh, bad connection. Okay.
Yeah, definitely Blab was screwing us over. So we apologize to our Blab listeners if they could even hear us. But it is what it is. It's a podcast. the podcast is still out on iTunes, and will be out on our website at swiftkickinass.com, where we totally covered this entire summit.
Yes.
The next guest was what was the gentleman's name? He wasn't on the list, but the guy that came up and talked about the summits, building summits.
His name was George.
George. Okay, that's all. He really, he's not a personality. He doesn't have a place where you can really follow him, but he makes a lot of money. He's big in the survival niche, so he has followers that all over. He does a survival magazine. Plus, he has written, or he hasn't personally written, but he's hired other people to write about 50 books. So he makes a lot of income off ebooks that he just uses pen names, and he puts out books that people are searching for.
I think at one time he said he owned 300 different domain names.
Yes, he did.
So this is a guy who really thinks outside of the box and knows how to make money and create his own life. I mean, he is his own boss, and I really respect that a lot.
And some of the things that he brought up, he was saying, always open with an engaging question and deliver 1 to 3 points of how they're going to help, right?
Right.
That's part of the
right.
summit formula. All right. So he also said, make a call to action, continue the conversation. So if after they leave your summit, that you continue with emails, follow-ups, and communicate with them. Otherwise, your list is going to grow cold, and you're not going to have that relationship. So when you do have something to sell to them,
and it's not really as much selling as it's offering something of value.
Right. And maybe we didn't clarify ourselves because I was kind of looking at my notes. But what this guy does is he proposes building an online summit. An online summit is basically getting a bunch of experts in a field and getting them together on a virtual summit that you can join, usually free. And whatever area it is like they're doing one on relationships, they'll come in and give their point. And of course, they're going to try to sell you something at the end. But that's how they make their money. But you don't have to buy. So you're getting all these different credible experts to basically build your list for you, because you're gaining the emails from it, and then later on you can sell them something related to it because these people are interested in whatever it is that the summit is about.
Right, and from a listener's point of view, why would I attend a summit? The real answer is that there is a gathering of experts there who are going to be able to answer a lot of questions about that subject and help educate you on those subject.
He also said make sure that one of the things that gets people to join those summits is you add a list of amazing bonuses. And it's something usually related to whatever the topic is. And it could be an action guide, a PDF. It could be a short little video course, a piece of software, something that's related that makes the people buy for the bonus. And I know I do this sometimes with internet marketing and stuff. Sometimes the bonus is so much better than even the product that I'm buying, that I'll buy the product to get the bonuses. Just buy with the bonus. It's a great technique.
Okay. George had a lot.
He also talked about speed and automation. Make sure that you get it out fast and automate it.
Yeah, Ellie, he was saying that's really the key to a successful product, is that it needs to make things easy and make things better. I mean, that's...
And he also says one of his tips that he does for when he makes a product, he looks for what people are already asking for. So he'll search and Google to find out what they're asking for, because he says if you type in the first words of how to, and you'll see a drop down, Google makes suggestions, those are what people have recently searched for. And then he says you take that and you go into Amazon, and then you find what people are buying related to that product, and you know what product specifically to make.
Right. Throughout this summit, I think it was abundantly clear that the key really to designing a life or a business based on your lifestyle, or creating a business around a lifestyle that you really want, is following your passion and understanding your passion. And we talked earlier about that, something that 95% of other people don't know. You're better, we all have our unique ability
Mm-hmm.
and our own unique story to tell. We all have something to offer. Doesn't matter what your walk of life is.
Right.
None of us know it all. And if you follow your passion and you're doing something that you love to do, and you're making money at it to support yourself. To me, that's just an ideal way of living.
You're doing what you were supposed to do
And
while you're here. It's like, someone had brought up, one of those speakers, that when you're a kid, you put the cape on, you run around like Superman, and no one ever questions you. So why are we questioned when we're adults? And people will come up with responses like, that's unrealistic,
Well, I think, throughout, when you're a child, you're told you can do anything that you want to do. You could become president of the United States if you're crazy enough to want to do that.
Right.
You could be a lawyer. You could be a fireman. You could be a combination, ballerina, teacher, lawyer. You could be anything that you want. But as you get older, we get programmed to think that we can't do it. So, and oftentimes if you follow the news, or, I think about my own life, we're kind of programmed to think about what we don't have in our life rather than turning it the other way and asking the real question is, what do you have in your life? And building upon that, not worrying about what you don't have, but really focusing on what you do have. And chances are you have a lot.
Absolutely. Amen, brother. So the last speaker, right? Do you want to jump into Bill Cartwright?
Yeah, I mean, Bill, that was just he's such an amazing man. Now, this man was 20 years old and weighed
280 pounds.
280 pounds. He went to the doctor. Of course, he's not 20 years old anymore. He's
50.
54, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
But so at 20 years of age, he goes to the doctor. He gets diagnosed with diabetes, and he's told that he will be blind by diabetes by the time he's 35. Mm-hmm. And what that really did is that triggered him to take his weight loss,
to take action.
It's
a swift kick in the ass.
And lose weight. Now, he made mention that it wasn't as though he was just a lazy person and never tried to do anything. He said actually he had lost over 120 pounds, I think, 3 different times in his life.
Right, but he always bounced back and went back where he was.
Right, so it wasn't the problem of losing weight. It was a problem of keeping the weight off. And if he wasn't successful at keeping that weight off, he was going to lose his vision and lose his health. So he really was doing this to be healthy.
Right. And he turned it around. He ended up winning 7 major bodybuilding championships. And
he broke his back in between that, I think is what he said. And he really defied the odds. And people were saying, you can't do this. You can't do this. And he said, watch me. And he just showed them.
Because basically he's saying, don't tell yourself those stories in your mind that you can't do something, because you'll identify it. It's almost like when you identify with your job, say, in my case, I'm an engineer. No, I'm not an engineer. I happen to do engineering, but I'm not an engineer.
Yeah. And he said that saying I am is a very limiting thing. It limits your ability to succeed at what you do. When you say I am this or I am that, it places limits on you.
Right. And his presentation was about ending procrastination
and stress.
And stress. Yeah, it's saying that procrastination is really based from stress.
Yeah, and he talked about being in I think it was a red zone.
A red zone and a green zone.
And a green zone. And in the red zone, when you're stressed, you're frantic, you're the fight or flight or frozen, like a deer stuck in headlights. you're not able to think the way you need to think if you're stressed.
That's also when you find yourself arguing with maybe someone, when you're bitching and complaining, he says that's when you're in the red zone. Because unlike, he referred back to the caveman days or the days when we were out in the, plains, that, it was a survival response. But now we don't need that for survival, but we still get in that red zone with stress, when every time we have an argument, we drive in traffic, we have a bad day at work.
Right. Right. And so what he was saying is we really need to operate in the green zone, which is where we can do our best thinking, and
right.
that we're calm and cool. I like to say cool, calm, and collected.
Right. And he also, and creative.
And creative.
And he said, I think that's where you pause and you plan, and, you can respond to stuff. That's where you grow.
Yeah. He said, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was very close to what I say about how life happens. Back, 10 years ago, I was up to my eyeballs in debt. My wife and I were. And on top of it, I was getting over mononucleosis. So if anyone's had that out there, that's the kissing disease. But all you want to do is sleep. And it feels like a Mack truck at you. So I'm getting over that. I'm feeling a little bit better, and we're up to our eyeballs in debt, and we're trying to work through a plan and everything. So difficult time in my life. And you know what? The refrigerator, it stops cooling. And my daughter, I forget how old she was at the time. She's probably about 7. She put a Pop-Tart container in the microwave and in the metal bag, and set the microwave on fire. And, our dishwasher, the handle was broken off. We had to, use, a special technique to get that up. And then my wife's van, needed new brakes and rotors. And I'm freaking out because I have no money to do these things. And I'm talking to a friend of mine, and I'm telling him everything that's going on. And I'm expecting, some sympathy. I'm going through a rough time, and I'm looking for a shoulder to cry on. And his response to me was, John, life happens. And I'm like, what the hell do you mean by that? He says, if he says, you feel this way because you don't have the money to fix these problems, to throw at these problems. He says, but it's not the end of the world. You're going to live tomorrow. It's just tough right now. And it means that you can't handle those problems the way that you used to handle them when you had money, or when you thought you had money or had room on your credit card, really. So, he says, what you need to do is you need to get creative. You need to figure it out. And I know you can do it. So after that phone call, I started kind of going down the checklist of things to do. I went onto the internet and I Googled the problem that I had was having on my refrigerator, and I figured out it was a $15 part. A little fan in the back had burned out. So I was able to, ordered that and got that fixed. The microwave, in the old days, I would have just gone out and bought a new microwave, but I didn't have the money to do that. So, and I wanted it. So I tried something a little bit different. I thought out of the box, took my shop vac out, and I vacuumed out the intakes, because what happened is that, when the microwave works, it sucks in air and circulates air through that area.
All right. So
anyhow, I guess long story short is I solved my problems. I didn't take much money. Fixing the microwave cost me nothing but my time. We learned to live with the dishwasher, and I was able to put brakes on the car as well. I solved my problems, but I had to think out of the box, and it was not the end of the world, and it was just my perspective. So life is going to happen, and life is going to happen when you don't need it to happen. That's just Murphy's Law.
Right. So getting back to Bill Cartwright, when he was talking about you're trying to change a habit, right? So he was referring to a comfort zone as a cage, right? That's where he was talking about career, finance, health, relationships. It's right?
It's programming.
Right. It's programming. So, he was talking about your head is like, he gave the, the analogy of being like a submarine, right? So you're the captain, your head is the captain, and your body is the crew.
Right.
And if they're in perfect harmony, no problem. But what happens often is the captain is off somewhere else and the crew is steering the
they're trying
submarine.
to fly. They're trying to fly a plane, and you're in a submarine.
Right.
But it's as far as the cage, a cage sounds pretty bad, but it can be something very comforting. Being in a cage can mean that you're safe and secure, like a safe room.
What think about The Walking Dead when they were in the jail? They went to the prison in order to keep away from the zombies.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And these areas such as career, a lot of us are programmed to think that we have to, get married, get a good job, go to college, get married, get a good job. I know I'm messing up the order, but that's just conventional belief of how you're supposed to live your life. And a lot of us go through all that and find, something's missing or it doesn't feel right, even though by conventional means or conventional means you're success, but you don't feel like you are. So you need that we're programmed. We're programmed to think.
Right. So he said, he was talking about his clients. So once he gets them out of that cage in order to change a habit, he said that it takes 30 days to be consistent before you actually start to change that habit. Right.
Right. And he said it's painful. And
right.
And it is.
You must have a strong purpose and you'll experience pain. 12 weeks out, you hit a plateau. And this is usually where people screw up. That's usually where they bounce back and cheat.
Where they're not making much progress. Yeah. And he said that in order for change to be long-term change to occur, you have to have that plateau and you have to be able to get through that.
And then he says at 6 months, you've achieved your goals, but you get comfortable. And that's where the danger is, if it's diet, you start going on. And I know I did this because, I did the paleo diet for a while and I lost like 15 or 20 pounds. And we had gone out to a competition for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu out in California. And I hadn't eaten anything bad until after the match. I was like, I can reward myself. I can have a cheeseburger, right? Or I could start eating the bread again. And then I kept on eating. I was like, you know what? I'm not gaining any weight back. Maybe I can just, I've dropped down to a certain weight. My metabolism kicked in and I can eat again. Well, yeah, that 5 pounds starts creeping on and 10 pounds before you know it. I went from 158. Now I'm 185, and it's very easy for that to happen.
Yeah, it is. And so he's saying that it really takes a full year for you to be, fully transformed.
Right.
And make that change to be considered long-term. You're out of the danger zone. I agree with that, but I know, like, for instance, I used to smoke cigarettes, and it's been over 15 years for me since I've had a cigarette. But I know that if I had an urge and I picked one up, I'd be right back on that, horse again. And I don't want to ever do that again. So it's, I guess you're always in danger.
Well, that's what he said. Because he said
don't unlearn habits or routines.
And he also, because he was attributing this to stress, he said that stress can never be shut off. It can only be managed.
Right. That's true. So we about...
that wraps it up. He was the last speaker. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot.
As did I. And we hope that you all enjoyed this podcast and that you got something of value out of it.
Yeah, because this Lifestyle Summit was not open necessarily to the public. They didn't do any advertising. They went around, basically it was his morning coach group and then some other groups. Like I'm in a podcast meetup. That's how I found out about it. JB Glossinger had come and spoke to us. And, he said, hey, if you guys are interested in this, I'm having it. But he's going to open them up in the future. This was the first one. And, he's going to do these twice a year, maybe under a different name. For the next one, I forget what it's called. Do you remember Abundant Living? I think it was Abundant Living Conference or something like that. Okay, well, I don't want to say it the wrong way. Anyways, it was a great event, and if you follow JB Glossinger over at morningcoach.com, you can find out more about it.
So I think we should leave our listeners with a call to action,
Okay.
and for me, that call of action is just to simply go to our website and tell us what you want to know about, what you want to learn about. Talk to us. What are your biggest challenges, and let us. What's your swift kick in the ass? Or how can we deliver a swift kick in the ass that's going to help, you move in the right direction?
Sounds good, man. And, so I guess check out swiftkickinass.com. You can opt in there for, what's the name of your ebook that you've written?
Oh, you would ask me that. It's I know it's about making life better.
Yeah.
And it's a swift kick it's a method book and how to, some things that you can do, some practical knowledge that you can carry forth into your life and make it better.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening.
Thanks
Peace.
for listening. Talk to you next time.